Welcome back to Chapter by Chapter Classics, the short-form classic literature podcast, where each episode walks you through a few chapters of a great book. Previously in Pride and Prejudice, Darcy's long letter forced Elizabeth to reconsider everything she thought she knew about him and Wickham. And as her self-knowledge deepened, Lydia's reckless trip to Brighton set up danger for the Bennet family's reputation. In this episode, we're covering chapters 43 through 49, where a visit to Pemberley reveals a changed Darcy, and news of Lydia's elopement turns hope into crisis.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a pivot point in literary history.
A huge one.
Chapters 43 through 49 of Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah. This section takes Elizabeth Bennet on, an emotional and geographic whirlwind.
It really does. It starts in the serene elegance of Pemberley.
And ends in just complete devastating crisis back at Longbourn.
It's an incredible narrative hinge, and I think our deep dive mission here is to trace that seismic shift.
For sure. So Elizabeth arrives in Derbyshire with her aunt and uncle Gardiner.
And she thinks Mr. Darcy is safely, hundreds of miles away?
Exactly. So this accidental visit to his estate, it's designed by Austen to just systematically dismantle every single one of Elizabeth's cherished prejudices.
But just as her feelings start to turn...
The crisis.
Yeah.
The shocking news of Lydia's elopement, which threatens to, extinguish all hope of happiness for the entire Bennet family.
The tension here is just masterful. It's this powerful, almost spiritual contrast. You have the peaceful, well-ordered beauty of a great estate, the absolute peak of social respectability.
And then you have this catastrophic vulgarity that's threatening to swallow the Bennets whole.
And it comes from their own internal chaos.
What's so fascinating is how Austen uses the physical setting of Pemberley not just as a location, but as a direct evaluation of Mr. Darcy's character.
Right. Let's start with that arrival in chapter 43. Elizabeth had been, maintaining this kind of defiant disinterest.
Yeah, she was tired of seeing great houses.
But when she actually sees Pemberley, she is just instantly overwhelmed.
She is. She's immediately struck by its taste. And the descriptions are so carefully chosen.
Elegance.
Exactly. And it's pointedly described as being neither gaudy nor uselessly fine. This isn't just an empty display of wealth for show.
It's not Rosings.
Not at all. Think back to Lady Catherine de Bourgh's estate, Rosings, which was all stiff formality and, forced splendor. It reflected her vanity. Pemberley, on the other hand, reflects a quiet, innate good judgment, a sense of stewardship in its owner. It suggests Darcy manages his wealth for the benefit of his people, not just his ego.
So before she even speaks to him, the landscape itself is already rewriting his character for her.
It is. But the most effective piece of propaganda, let's call it, comes from a really unexpected source.
The servants.
Absolutely. Mrs. Reynolds, the housekeeper, she becomes this key, highly reliable character witness.
And she speaks of Darcy with excessive commendation, which is huge because Elizabeth has held on to this conviction that Darcy is proud, ill-tempered, and selfish.
A man who cruelly ruined Wickham.
And the housekeeper's testimony just flips that whole narrative on its head. She calls him the best landlord and the best master that ever lived.
And even more endearingly, she describes him as the sweetest-tempered, most generous-hearted boy in the world when he was growing up.
It forces Elizabeth to confront this fundamental question, right? Why is a servant's praise more credible than what she heard from a peer?
Because a servant sees the genuine, private character. They see how a person treats those they have total authority over.
That's a great point.
His praise reflects, sustained moral behavior, not just a drawing room performance.
So she's compelled to recognize him as this man who's responsible for the happiness of a lot of people.
It directly challenges the whole notion of him as a cruel monster.
And just as she is processing this profound character shift...
The peace is shattered.
The unexpected meeting in chapter 44...
Right. Darcy returns home a full day early, and they just run into each other on the lawn, completely unprepared.
The moment is defined by this mutual, shocking embarrassment.
They're both covered in the deepest blush.
But the real revelation is how Darcy handles it. He is strikingly altered.
Yeah. His manners, which she'd previously despised as, haughty, are now marked by perfect civility and a profound gentleness.
And the text makes a point of saying she had never seen his manners so little dignified.
which is such a great line. As compared to their previous, almost combative interactions at places like Rosings, his pride seems to have just vanished.
It's replaced by an earnest desire to please.
And this immediately transitions us into that second critical phase. Darcy's proactive change and Elizabeth's budding regard in chapter 45.
Instead of just retreating into mortification, he immediately takes steps to cultivate their acquaintance.
He does. He requests Elizabeth's permission to introduce his sister, Georgiana Darcy.
And this is where the Wickham narrative really starts to unravel for her.
Oh, completely. Because she'd heard from Wickham that Georgiana was proud and distant, just like her brother.
But when Miss Darcy visits, Elizabeth discovers the exact opposite.
She's exceedingly shy, almost painfully so, not proud at all.
And Mr. Bingley is there too.
Right, and Elizabeth notes that he shows no particular regard for Miss Darcy, which satisfies her major lingering concern.
That Bingley might have moved on from Jane.
It's exactly. But the most remarkable evidence of Darcy's changed nature is his humility concerning Elizabeth's, well, her low relations. The Gardiners.
He is civil, not only to herself, but to the very relations whom he had openly disdained.
And these are the Gardiners who live near Cheapside, who are associated with trade.
The very thing Darcy cited in his first proposal as a major objection to marrying her.
That is the ultimate litmus test. Darcy's pride was fundamentally rooted in class snobbery. His willingness now to treat the Gardiners with respect, to even show them attention, proves to Elizabeth that the change is real.
His desire to please her has fully overcome the pride that once dominated him.
And this realization finally melts her remaining reserve. We find her standing before his portrait in the gallery.
Reflecting on his regard with a deeper sentiment of gratitude. She's now actively wishing for the possibility of a relationship she had so scornfully refused just months before.
She is finally seeing the man behind the magnificent facade.
And this pinnacle of emotional recognition, this tiny moment of hope,
is precisely when the outside world, the vulgar reality of the Bennet family situation, just crashes in.
The narrative turns on a sharp knife edge in chapter 46 as the disaster strikes.
It arrives in the form of 2 urgent letters from Jane, delivered right after Miss Darcy's visit. The shocking news. Lydia has eloped with Wickham from Brighton.
The initial details are chilling because they show just how calculated it was.
The first letter has Lydia's note claiming they were off to Gretna Green to marry.
Which was, scandalous, but still a legal marriage. It implies a romantic blunder.
Right. But the chilling truth is revealed by Colonel Forster's investigation. Denny, Wickham's acquaintance, suggests Wickham never intended to go there or to marry Lydia at all.
They were traced only as far as Clapham,
where they quickly changed into a hackney coach and just disappeared into the vast anonymity of London.
And that detail of the hackney coach, it's so important for you, the listener, to grasp.
It is absolutely critical. Changing coaches and vanishing in London is not what 2 young lovers do when they're seeking a quick wedding.
No. It signals deliberate, calculated concealment.
And it implies they are living together outside of marriage. That moves the event from romantic blunder to calculated ruin.
And why is this so devastating for the family? In their social structure, the family immediately fears the worst.
That Lydia is living with Wickham. The consequence is irremediable infamy and deepest disgrace.
It's not just Lydia's personal ruin, is it? It's a social catastrophe for Jane, Kitty, and Mary.
The disgrace falls upon all the unmarried sisters. It renders them tainted goods on the marriage market.
Their chances of a respectable match are just destroyed.
Yeah, they're gone. No reputable family would want to risk associating with that kind of public immorality. This is a total social crisis.
And the parents. We see immediate chaos at Longbourn.
Mrs. Bennet is really ill from the shock, and Mr. Bennet, deeply affected, immediately sets off for London with Colonel Forster to search for them.
But even in the distress, there's a hint of the larger problem.
Yes. Jane notes that his distress prevents him from pursuing any measure in the best and safest way, which hints at the long-standing weakness in Mr. Bennet's character.
His tendency to retreat into his books rather than actively governing his family.
Right. This brings us to the emotional reckoning of chapter 47. Elizabeth has to immediately leave this Pemberley idyll and carry this news home. But first,
she has to confess her family's disgrace to Darcy.
And his reaction is not judgmental, but he's deeply troubled. He becomes gloomy, his brow contracted, and he walks in earnest meditation.
Elizabeth instantly realizes that this public proof of her family's weakness, this ultimate disgrace, has just extinguished any hope for their match.
No matter how much his character has improved, her family's reputation is now, well, it's tainted beyond redemption.
This leads to the pinnacle of her internal tragedy. The source tells us she felt that never had she so honestly felt that she could have loved him as now, when all love must be vain.
The irony is just excruciating.
She truly loves him only at the precise moment that her family's ruin makes that love impossible.
It's the ultimate tragic setup. Her prejudice is finally conquered, only to be immediately replaced by this overwhelming obstacle.
The very real social consequence of her sister's folly.
Darcy departs abruptly, assuring her of his secrecy and expressing profound sorrow. He leaves Elizabeth to contemplate the perverseness of those feelings.
So Elizabeth and the Gardiners hasten home. Mr. Gardiner tries to maintain a thread of hope during the journey.
He stresses that Wickham's temptation is not adequate to the risk of social ostracism,
Suggesting that Wickham might still marry Lydia just to save his own standing.
which is a crucial practical point. Wickham has his own reputation to protect, limited as it is.
However, Mr. Gardiner ultimately realizes that Mr. Bennet is simply too distressed and ineffective to manage the search.
Right. Mr. Gardiner decides he has to go to London himself to take charge, seeing the family patriarch is failing in his role.
So, if we look back at this deep dive, we've witnessed one of the most significant character transformations in literature.
Elizabeth's prejudice against Darcy was dismantled, piece by piece.
By the elegant sincerity of Pemberley, the praise of the housekeeper, and Darcy's profound humility toward her low relations.
Yes, and the irony is just immense. This realization of Darcy's true merit, this acceptance of love, it occurred precisely at the moment the Bennet family's reputation was obliterated.
Making any future connection with Darcy seem utterly impossible due to the rules of their society.
But the tragedy of Lydia is also the tragedy of Longbourn. We are forced to look beyond Lydia's impulsiveness and ask, what led to this?
We see so clearly that Mr. Bennet's entire relationship with his wife was built on amusement. Her ignorance and folly had contributed to his amusement.
And Elizabeth now feels the heavy disadvantages of that unsuitable marriage. She recognizes that the problem isn't just Lydia.
It's Mr. Bennet's profound failure to use his superior intellect, his talent, to preserve the respectability of his daughters.
He just withdrew from his paternal duties. He treated his family life like a comedy instead of a serious responsibility.
So the ultimate takeaway from these chapters is this. As Elizabeth finally recognizes Darcy's true worth as a steward of moral and social excellence,
she simultaneously recognizes the deep structural moral neglect at the core of her own family.
And we are left at the end of chapter 49 with the pressing question of whether Lydia's crisis is simply her own momentary folly,
or the entirely predictable and tragic consequence of Mr. Bennet's long-standing moral abandonment of his duties as a father and a husband.
Something for you to mull over as we move into the desperate search for Lydia.
Those are chapters 43 through 49, Pemberley softening Elizabeth's view of Darcy, followed by the shock of Lydia's elopement with Wickham. In the next episode, we'll move into chapters 50 through 58, where the scandal is patched over, secrets come to light, Bingley returns, and Lady Catherine pays a memorable visit to Longbourn. Thanks for listening to Chapter by Chapter Classics. If this episode helped you follow the story, follow the show in your podcast app so you don't miss the next chapter. And if you're enjoying this series, please take a moment to rate the podcast or leave a short review. It really helps other readers and students find the show.